Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And we have a lot to talk about this week. We are now a week removed from Star City Games Open in Cincinnati, where we got to see the impact Hour of Devastation is starting to have on the standard meta, and we saw some new stuff, actually a lot of new stuff. You're going to see that reflected in some of the values that we talk about today. I do want to point out, however, we're not going to look yet at Hour of Devastation singles in this video. I took a look at them today, and they're still kind of in weird flux, so I wanted to wait another week probably before I incorporate them into this video, but I am going to do a special video early this coming week where we just look at Hour of Devastation separately. But for today, we're going to look at the cards that were already existing in the formats prior to Hour. Another thing I do want to point out too, typically I do a commander section at the end of the video. The cards I spotlighted for this week's commander, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess depending on how you look at it, actually moved so much that they ended up in the standard, modern, and legacy lists. So we're going to talk a lot about Commander today, and I don't have a separate section, but a lot of cards are going to come up for sure in the other lists, and you'll definitely want to stay tuned if you're a Commander fan. That section isn't going to go away. I'm going to keep that separate typically, but this was a really weird week, and I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. Commander is a big deal. This is a great summer for Commander and a great fall, and it's only going to get bigger as we get closer to the release of those 4 Commander decks, those tribal decks, and you're already seeing implications of those coming out too. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you find a couple ways to help support us, one of which is the Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases there, whether it's singles you see here today or any product, a small percentage will come back to help us out. Always appreciated. Secondly, you'll find our Patreon page also linked below. With that out of the way, let's get into the cards for today. We're going to begin with the standard cards that have lost value this week. So you're going to notice here, a lot of these are cards that feel like they were staples of the last meta that maybe will have a lesser role in this new meta, at least based off what we saw in week 1. That could change, obviously, at any moment. But let's get in with number 5, and that's Heart of Kirin, down 50 cents this week to $12.50. Not a huge drop. This card, again, saw extensive printing being in Aether Revolt, so this is really falling more to probably what you would expect to pay for a card like this from a set with a high print run. Coming in, number 4, Grim Flyer, down 54 cents to $14.48. Still seeing play in both standard and modern, but down a little this week. Number 3, Ronas the Indomitable, down 55 cents this week to $12.22. I think this is partially due to the fact that Ronas has been steadily climbing. And again, there's a lot of copies of the card out there, so I think it's just stabilizing a little bit. The card saw play this weekend in the new meta, and as you could expect, the energy decks actually looked pretty good this week, although we'll have to kind of see how people will sideboard against that going forward. However, at least for right now, card looked healthy and is still doing work in Modern 2 and Counter Company decks. Coming in number 2, Kalatas, Trader of Gat, down 56 cents to $12.59. And coming in at number 1, Relentless Dead, down 90 cents to $10.99. Now, Mono Black Zombies actually top-aided in the Star City Games Cincinnati Open. However, I think the writing's on the wall for this deck that it's in a really tough meta. There's so many board sweeps. Some players tried to evolve the deck with Scarab God a little bit. They didn't put up great results. It's just week 1. I mean, you could tweak that. That deck still has a good chance, of course. But at least coming out of the first week, things looked a little dire for Zombies, even with the good finish. Alright, let's move on to the cards that have gained value this week in Standard. And there's a variety of things here, so I'm just going to jump right in. Coming at number 5, Liliana the Last Hope, up 31 cents to $31.57. Now, yeah, she is still seeing Standard play. Energy decks love to have her and stuff like that. Even the zombie decks, of course. But I think the needle being moved forward this week is more due to Modern, and she's seeing extensive play in variants of the Death Shadow decks, both the Grixis version and the aggro version. So because of that, yeah, Liliana is going to continue to be a hot card. I think of cards like this and Collective Brutality as maybe the best standard legal cards to pick up, just because they have great long-term potential, and they're both from Eldritch Moon, a set that was printed far less than a lot of these current day Magic sets that we see. Coming in number 4, Dusk Till Dawn, of 32 cents to 127. Still a pretty cheap pickup, and the card looked pretty good this past weekend in Cincinnati. It was one of the key parts to the blue-white monument decks, which looked incredible. It came in second place, actually, and there were a whole bunch of them throughout the field, 2 in the top 8. And what this card does for that deck, not only does it clear the board, but it also helps your resiliency against some of these other board sweeps by bringing the small creatures back from your graveyard to your hand to recast. Actually kind of awesome in this particular build. So this is one to watch in the future for sure. Coming in number 3, Regal Caracol, up 36 cents to 124. Now this card isn't seeing extensive standard play. I have seen it occasionally in some Azorius control decks. However, it's getting some attention this week due to the fact that yesterday Wizards released some art really confirming the fact from what we saw from previous leaks that there will be a Cat Tribal Commander deck. It's one of these 4 Tribal Commander decks coming out at the end of August. So with that, I mean, this is a great choice to perhaps upgrade that deck, and some early adopters are already starting to think about picking up singles that are Cat-centric like this one. This is a nice pickup. So happy to see this card go up. I think it's a great casual card, and even without the Cat Tribal deck, does have implications for Commander decks. Coming in at number 2 is Startled Awake, up $1.48 to $8. So the mill deck didn't really show up in any sort of prominence, of course, at Star City Games Cincinnati. I think that disappointed a lot of folks that wanted to see that, myself included. I would like to see that deck at least get a short run, if nothing else. I was a little skeptical as to how a deck like that could really be successful long-term in this current meta. And at least as of right now, we haven't seen this doing a whole lot. And as a matter of fact, even though it's up week to week, it's gone down quite a bit in the last 24 hours. As a matter of fact, this was close to $9 yesterday morning. So this card maybe is starting to show indications of softening a little bit. We'll have to see what happens over the next couple weeks. If somebody can bring a cool mill deck to the Pro Tour or something that does well, this could turn around in a heartbeat, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. Coming in number 1, Chandra Torture Defiance, up $4.14 to $28.97. Well, Chandra was good before the meta change. Guess what? Chandra's good after the meta change. All those decks we talk about every week that she's in, she's still in them, and she's also in decks like the mono red aggro decks that we're seeing now. So there are mono red decks showing up with this card that we weren't seeing prior to the new meta. So she just has more utility than she ever had. Now this is a nice little spike. Don't be too surprised if you start to see a snapback over the next couple weeks. Now, if she does well on the Pro Tour, she'll get another spike probably, but then she may crash hard shortly after that. You do have to take into account she's from Kaladesh. A lot of packs of Kaladesh have been opened. So this is a very inflated price based off the fact that a lot of folks are scrambling right now to put their decks together. This price will be coming down. This isn't a great price to pick her up at. $25, $30 is going to be a little bit high for this card. Ultimately, she's still a good card long term. She will see modern play, I think, pretty much forever. So you do want to keep that in mind. But remember, there's a lot of copies out there. All right, let's move on to modern, speaking of which, and the cards that have lost value this week. You're not going to see anything too interesting here, honestly. These are cards that have been going up and down recently, and some that have been actually falling over the last few weeks. Coming in number 5, Karn Liberated for New Phyrexia. He's down $1.83 to $66.48. He was going up. I think last week, actually, he went up. So he's just stabilizing a little bit. The Eldrazi Tron deck and even the regular Tron versions are still very popular and I think very good in the meta right now. Number 4, Noble Hierarch from Conflux, down $2.11 to $65.45. I'm really suspicious that this one will definitely see a reprint within the next 6-8 months or so. If this isn't in Iconic Masters or Masters 25, I would be shocked. This card hasn't shown up in a long time. It's a staple of not only Modern, but Legacy and Vintage. And I feel like Wizards wouldn't go this long without a reprint of the card. And most likely at the rare spot. I mean, it could be upgraded to Mythic, and that could help it hold its value a little more. But I think at this point, a lot of people are getting a little suspicious of this card, even though it is still highly played. Number 3, Pact of Negation, down $2.12 to $33.77. This is the Modern Masters version. And this card has been going up recently, so it's stabilizing down a little bit now. Another card that potentially could see a reprint, but it is a key part of like Gift Storm decks. Number 2, All Is Dust, down $3 to $23.94. This is the Rise of the Eldrazi version. Again, another card that's been going up, is now stabilizing a little bit. Still part of those Tron decks. And coming in at number 1, Horizon Canopy from Future Sight, down $7.43 to $83.76. And this card is still feels actually a little overpriced. Again, another card that hopefully we'll see a reprint at some point. But the reason this got so hot a few weeks ago was it was part of the land base for the Dubious Challenge deck, which was kind of the hot deck of the moment and put up at least one good result, probably more if you dig a little deeper. But for the most part, I think players are going to want to see this deck put up more good results before they completely latch onto it and consider it a higher tier deck or anything like that. But at least for the moment, this card is softer and is starting to come down off that very large spike that it had. So again, this has potential for the future, but I do feel like this card is still priced a little bit high. All right, let's move on to the top 5 quote-unquote modern cards that have gained value this week. The reason I say that is because most of the cards we're going to look at today are actually moving not because of modern, but because of Commander, even though they are modern legal cards technically. Actually, these are the cards I was going to spotlight in our Commander section, and then I realized, wow, these cards are actually hot enough to cross over into where they're legal, which is modern in this case. So this is pretty crazy. I mean, we saw a little bit of this last summer too, but Commander is just really heating up right now. So let's see what we get. Coming in number 5, Consecrated Sphinx, up 285 to 2317. So this card doesn't see modern play right now, at least not extensively. Doesn't see a lot of legacy play. Sees a little vintage play. But this card is hot right now due to the fact that it's actually pretty popular in 2 different Commander builds. The main one, probably the Locust God build, that Swarm deck. Great support card there. Secondly, it is showing up as some Sphinx Tribal as well. So you have 2 different sets of players maybe looking at this card in a different way recently since Hour of Devastation has come out. Coming in number 4, Goryo's Vengeance, up 309 to 4994. Now, this one is more of a modern card, and again, this is part of that Dubious Challenge deck that I was talking about earlier. Now, this card was really undervalued, I think, when Dubious Challenge hit, so this isn't a surprise to me. I feel like this should be about a $50 card if you compare it to other cards like it, so this was maybe under the radar for a little while. So even if the Dubious Challenge deck doesn't really maintain its popularity over time, this card I think still will. Coming in number 3, Bitter Blossom for Morningtide, up 325 to 3439. Now this card does see modern play like Abzan decks, but there is also more attention on Tribal right now in Commander due to the fact that the Tribal decks are coming out. Now, we know what 3 of them are, but we don't really, at least we have a good idea what 3 of them are. I mean, granted, Vampires is speculation based off the art, but I think it's pretty good speculation. Cats, again, we saw some leaks, but also speculation off the art is pretty clear. And then finally, same thing with Dragons. The speculation off the art and the leaks look pretty clear. Now that 4th one, they did show us some art, but it could go in some different directions. Some people might be thinking fairies, some might be thinking elves, maybe warriors. It was really hard to tell from that particular piece of art that they shared. But even regardless, if it's fairies or not fairies, this is still a good card to pick up and have for Commander players that are interested in Tribal just generally. And like I said, also sees modern play. Okay, coming in at number 2, Lich Lord of Unix, up 326 to 938. So, you probably guessed it already. This is another card that is hot because of Commander, in particular the Scarab God. So, Commander decks that are using the Scarab God, this is a perfect card to complement that one. It works with zombies, obviously Zombie Tribal, which totally makes sense. It's in the right colors. It's almost a no-brainer. And coming in number 1, Coastal Piracy. This is the 8th edition version. Of course, we saw a Mercadian Mass version of this, which wasn't uncommon. I do want to point that out. But at least this version is going up this week, 385 to 489. And you guessed it. Again, it's because of Commander. Again, another card that plays really well with the Locust God in the Swarm decks. So, yeah, Commander is having a huge, huge impact this week on the modern market. It feels like last summer again where we started to see this happening. And it's only going to get bigger and better for that format because, again, we're getting closer to these 4 Tribal decks being released. There's going to be a lot of excitement around Commander this summer and this fall. All right, let's move on to the Legacy. Again, you're going to find a little bit of Commander influence in here too. But starting off with the cards that have lost value this week. Coming in number 5, Howling Mind from Unlimited, down this week 1711 to 49.99. Number 4, Living Plane, down $17.24 to $150. This one's been sliding the last few weeks, but it seems to be stabilizing if you look at the card over the last couple days. So yeah, I don't really see this dropping much more before it starts going back up again. Number 3, Diamond Valley, down $18.51 to $163.68. Another card that is usually around the $200 mark that's a little lower right now. So if you can find a cheaper copy of this, like $140, $160, and you happen to want this for a deck or maybe to add it to your collection, might not be a horrible pickup right now. Number 2, Gauntlet of Might from Unlimited, down $19.99 to $172.25. And coming in number 1, the Tabernacle of Pendrell Val this week, down $22.66 to $1,330. All right, let's look at those cards that have gained a value this week. Coming in number 5 is Willow Satyr from Legends, up $17.64 to $39. This is one of the cards we looked at in the Commander section last week, and now it's crossed over right into the Real Legacy section, which is pretty crazy. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ixalan leaks and spoilers right now, so if you've been avoiding those, I'll give you a second to skip forward to the next card. All right, hopefully you made it. So, something interesting about this card. If you've been following the Ixalan leaks, you know that it appears, anyway, that the Planeswalkers in Ixalan are going to be known as Legendary Planeswalkers. That has led to a lot of speculation that we'll see some changes to the Legendary rules, making maybe Planeswalkers even retroactively Legendary. If that's the case, a lot of players are looking at some of these older cards that interact with Legends and starting to see them in a new way. Now, this could be an example of that, but if you looked at our message or comment section last week, you'll know that the dialogue came up, started by Edward, and it was a really good point that if you look at the Oracle text, this actually says gain control of target legendary creature. So there could be some people picking this card up that might not realize that the Oracle text is actually a little bit unintuitive to what the card's actually saying and might not work the way they want it to work. So that's kind of interesting. Now, all of this is just speculation at this point because, again, you have to, first off, take into account the leaks we saw, even though they looked really legit, are still leaks. They have not been confirmed. Maybe things change between now and then. You never know, right? Secondly, you have to make the next leap that, again, Wizards is going to make a sweeping rules change based off what we saw. Thirdly, with this card in particular, you have to make the next leap saying that when they do make that rules change, they're going to revisit some of the Oracle text on these legendary cards or cards that interact with Legends and perhaps make some changes. If that's the case, well, then maybe this card will work as intended. And it's possible. I mean, those are a lot of ifs there, but it is possible just due to the fact that this sort of ideology of trying to make a card do what it was originally intended to do is a very old ideology that Wizards doesn't really do anymore. I feel like this card probably just slipped through the cracks from those days, and if they do ever kind of get this on their radar again, they may actually reverse the Oracle text. And I wouldn't be shocked at that because they have changed to more recent ideology of trying to make the cards do at least closer to what they say they do to prevent confusion and such. So this one does feel a little archaic when it comes to its Oracle text. It could change at some point. But even regardless, I mean, this is still a reserve list card. It's still a Legends card that's hard to find and pick up. It does have implications for Commander just in general, even if the Planeswalker thing never pans out for it. So there's a lot going for this card, and the attention that it's garnered from this speculation has probably helped it quite a bit. So yeah, maybe it's a little overpriced. Definitely buy at your own risk at this point if you're looking to pick the card up. But at the same time, it does have a lot going forward. It's not going to go back down to where it was prior to all this happened for sure. Coming in number 4, Jazam Jajin, up 1843 to 526.67. Number 3, the first of many dual lands on our list today, Plateau from Unlimited, up 2504 to 195. Now, quick little background about dual lands going up this week. It's hard to say exact correlation here because dual lands kind of go up every week. But I do want to point out that earlier this week, Wizards did announce that there would be at least a little bit of Legacy showing up in a future Pro Tour. They're going to do a Team Trios at some point next year that is going to include, of course, Standard, Modern, and Legacy. Now, some people speculated that having Legacy on TV on the Pro Tour is going to lead to more interest in the format, especially around the time Masters 25 comes out, and that dual lands might be something worth picking up maybe now more than ever. So you are seeing some increased interest in those dual lands. The other theory out there was some stores appeared to raise their prices of these lands right before the announcement happened, leading some to believe that maybe some stores had some inside information. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't want to say more than that or speculate further because I don't have any facts. I don't know. And again, when you're dealing with dual lands, I mean, sometimes these things just go up because they go up, right? So it's hard to make that correlation, or it might not even be the store. It could be the fact that maybe other people had insider information and they started making purchases a little bit early, and that led to the stores raising their prices. So there's a lot of things that could have happened, but we don't really know for sure. So I just want to throw that out there for your consideration. But what we do know, of course, is these cards are going up in value. Number 2, Volcanic Island. We're looking at unlimited and revised this week. Revised going up $24.05 to $320.50, with unlimited going up $46.61 to $518.09. And finally, Underground Sea from Revised this time around, going up a good $54.11 to $400.94. So there you go, a Revised dual land hitting the $400 mark. Wow. So anyway, that is our market watch for this week. Like I said, normally I would do a commander section here, and I will in the future, of course. But because all the cards I intended to spotlight ended up becoming super successful, I guess, that they ended up in other lists. So I guess that is something that shouldn't be too surprising. I think this is going to be something we see a lot over the next few months in the world of Commander. A lot of very strong cards maybe crossing over into some of these other lists. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.